So social media is a permanent change in communications. This is not going away. It's not a fad. It's a good place to use a strategy first and then a tactic second. And when I say tactic, what that is Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, those are tactics. But if your customers or the folks you're trying to reach out to aren't on those platforms, then potentially it's not the place for you to be. So strategy first, and then the strategy will direct you to what tactic to use. So to me, when a phenomenon is so prevalent that you just hardly have to walk out your door before you discover it or it affects you, then it's all pervasive, and it's a thing we shouldn't ignore anymore. So social media is really just a means for people to get together and talk and solve problems for one another and socialize and just help one another, regular people, okay? And so this is myfamily.com. It's a site called myfamily.com, and about 5 years ago, my sister-in-law signed our family up with this. I'm the 8th of 9 kids, and so in our family it becomes an issue, really big extended family, kind of all across the country. So this is just an example. This is from February 2010. My sister Patty in Denver says, laugh out loud, what have we started here? I burn 2,600 calories a day, eat 1,600 calories a day. If I walk the dog for 2 miles, then work out and rest. And what it's about is there's a device that's a pedometer, but it's like a pedometer on steroids. You wear it on your wrist. And my sister's discovered it. So Patty says, what have we started? And then Michelle says, oh no, I want one. I was hoping I wouldn't want one, but I want one, right? And then my sister Maggie comes down here and says, I love it. It makes me walk more, it makes me more active. I get to see what my calorie burn is at, get one. So if I was the owner of the company that did this thing, I would be beside myself to see this type of conversation going on out there about this. Now the other really odd thing about this phenomenon is it's not only my brothers and sisters tend to trust one another, maybe we didn't when we were teens, but we tend to now, but we trust one another for advice and for referrals. And so Maggie got her little device and it didn't work. So did she call the company that she bought it from? No. She called my sister Patty. Patty's a Microsoft certified engineer. Patty got her device working, okay? Maggie started having issues with her laptop and not enough memory. Did she call HP or Dell to figure that out? No, she called my brother Charlie. And actually she didn't call him, she got on my family and said having problems. Charlie fixed her problem, made recommendations, she went that way. That's kind of what's going on in social media. Whether you like it or not, whether you're irritated by it or you want to control, it doesn't matter, it's going on now. People are out there talking about you and your products. And they're tending not to come, they're trying to get help from one another for solutions to problems. So that's kind of the big picture issue. And when I see that's just happening right there in my family, oh brother, this is major, okay? So now the phenomenon is really taking us back to the old days where it used to be we were an agrarian society and you'd go to market on Saturday, and when you went to market, you saw other people and you talked about, you know, have you heard about this barbed wire stuff? I'm going to get some, or, you know, and people would make recommendations and you would talk to one another. And then what happened over time was, you know, this mass media thing grew up and the ability to broadcast media out. And so that was a really great thing. It was kind of a major development in civilization, but the reality is that was kind of more the aberration. Going back and getting word of mouth and referrals from people you know and friends, that's really the way things were for thousands and thousands of years. And so in a way, what's happened is social media is allowing us to get back to that. Now, I love this chart right here. This is the Gartner hype cycle, okay? And so, can you see the mouse? Can y'all see the mouse on there? Okay. What happens, and this happens with any kind of new technology, so from buggies to cars or, you know, telegraph, telephone, radio, TV, a technology trigger happens and people get all excited about the technology. Now I got to get on this thing. And so they get really excited and a lot of people get on it and start using it. So you get this peak of inflated expectations. And so, you know, people get on it and they go, well, I don't get this. When TV first started coming out, it was supposed to be the educational medium to end all. We won't need universities anymore. We're going to get on TV and watch and learn, you know. And we saw what happened with that, right? So people get these inflated expectations as to what's going to happen, and then what happens is they get in the trough of disillusionment down here in the bottom. So they think it's going to be the greatest thing, and then over time it's like, no, it's not. People are just, yeah, you know, whatever. And so some of these social media platforms make it through this curve much faster than others. For instance, Facebook. Facebook is really easy to understand. Facebook, you get on Facebook and you set up your account, next thing you know, people you haven't seen in 30 years are reaching out to you, and you're catching up with people. You get to see pictures of people you haven't seen or family that live in the places. You get through this cycle with Facebook fairly easily. Twitter is another kind of issue. Twitter, 80% of Twitter accounts, people signed up for an account, they did 2 tweets, and then they dropped out, scratching their heads going, what was that about? I don't understand this, okay? But recognize in this hype curve that eventually enlightenment happens and productivity sets in. And guys, that's what's happening with Twitter. Oprah Winfrey joined Twitter, and Twitter use spiked like this, and then within 3 months, it went right back down. But it didn't go down to 0, okay? And what's going on now is people are adopting Twitter and understanding the use for Twitter. It's kind of the rule of unintended consequences. You know, it was supposed to be, what are you doing right now? Well, people aren't using it for that. What people are using it for is to provide information to people, links to a website, links to ideas. It can be mundane, like Don Harkey's post on his blog today. I recommend you read that. It's, you know, my cat ate his cat food, and now his breath smells like cat food, you know? And so I don't want to hear that. That's not important to me. But on the other end of that spectrum, what I can do is I can start following experts in social media. I can start following experts in jazz. I can follow experts in gardening, the things I love, the things I'm interested in. We adopted a border collie from the Humane Society, and I tweeted that, and next thing you know, 15 border collie people are following me on Twitter. Pretty amazing. So what's happening now is I go home at night, and instead of watching the news or reading the paper for that day, I get on Twitter and I start reading that day's tweets. And I'm getting information about the things I'm interested in and what I like, okay? So recognize that Twitter is one of the 3rd highest used search engines. And forgive me on the statistics. Anytime you use the statistics in the social media space, it's dated in a month, okay? So Twitter is growing as a search engine. If you want to learn about something, get on Twitter and search for that topic, and you will be amazed. People will inundate you with information about that like you wouldn't believe for as long as you want to take it, okay? So also recognize that the social media phenomenon isn't just those 3 platforms, it's on many platforms, and in fact it's hundreds, potentially thousands of platforms. In a way, when you start thinking about the future of these social media platforms, do you remember when there were 3 TV channels? How many are there now? How many social media platforms do you think there's going to be, right? Facebook may go away, but people's desire to connect with one another will not go away. Now myfamily.com, the Vizio family, we actually had some in-laws. My brother allowed some in-laws in there, and my other brothers and sisters put their foot down and said, no. We talk about private things. I want to be free to talk about whatever I want to talk about. Did you know that your sense of humor is not gotten by half the people? Half the people are offended by your jokes. And so I want to be able to say stuff that people understand I mean well. You know? So we actually asked those other folks to get off that platform. Sorry, that was a mistake. That's kind of what's going on. I know. So that was my brother's problem. And actually, that's a good segue into, this is a public relations sort of platform. This is understanding conflict resolution and understanding irritated people and how do you deal with that. It's the public relations world already has that figured out. That's the world that you're heading to with this stuff. So social networking, if you get on social networking and you think they're going to start saying to people, buy from me, that's what you're going to get, buy, right? They're going to shut you down. And I've done that to people before. When folks get on there and start listing things for sale or, you know, come do this, they go away. Now if it's in LinkedIn, I'll allow that. But in Facebook, for me personally, I want friends and family and people I know, okay? I'm not saying that's the rule that everyone should use, I'm saying that's for me, okay? So online communities are people who share interests and activities. If an idea is a really great idea, it'll go viral and people will start spreading that idea. So your objectives can be developing promoters, finding those brand evangelists you have, finding the people that really love you. And potentially, if you get enough people that really love you, they're going to shout down the folks that are having problems with you, okay? Product research, you can go out there and ask people, well, hey, what are you looking for? In a lot of ways, these days people are, instead of using the yellow pages, they'll go to Google and they'll search, I have a problem and I need a solution, I'll go to Google and search. Well, these days it's even getting more to where you just get to the social network and say, what roofer did you use? I need to buy a new dishwasher, who do you go to? And you get just direct information from people. So it's even bypassing Google and search engines. So people are building these networks of folks you trust that you can turn to and get information from. You can find collaborators, you can develop your brand, you can position yourself, your company, or your product. So branding your own self. So I may have my company brand on LinkedIn, but I also have Steve. You know, I have company on Facebook, but I also have Steve, because you need to know me and you'll know my company. Can't be around me too long without he's trying to sell you. I can't help it, it's a genetic problem. So now, when in this world of people getting on Google and they have a problem they need to solve, and they're going to type in on Google, here's my problem, where can I get resources? What happens is the Google can't call you up and say, are you for real, and who have you helped? They just don't have the resources to do that. The only means they have to do that is by sending software out to scrape your site, look at the content on your site. Then they go look out in social media and other worlds and see how many people are linking back to your site, okay? So search engines have to use non-human technology to determine if your business is legitimate, and then of the legitimate businesses, who's a great resource to solve your problems. So the marketplace rules are changing. You can no longer pay a media gateway to guarantee your position. Your job is to be a thought leader and a resource. So the way this works is Google will never allow anyone to know how their algorithm works to rank you on a page. You can't know that. If I knew that, I can charge you $10,000, page 1, top position. That can't be that way. Okay? If you just try to become a thought leader and a resource and give away information and help people share and help people solve problems, help people solve problems within the community of your own users, then you're doing it. So your highest priority and your biggest challenge is creating content, guys. So my tendency is to go look at what you're doing now for your marketing and start repurposing it, get multiple uses out of. So there's another lady I know who does a radio show weekly. Hey, let's put a video camera in front of you at the radio show. You got video and radio now. If you're talking to a customer and the customer says, boy, I really appreciated what you did to help me, hold that thought into the camera, please. Thank you. Now, what happens when these phones, as soon as I hit stop on the video, first thing it asks me is share, and I can immediately click share, put it up to my YouTube account, and it's done, okay? So slick and polished isn't necessarily what people are looking for on YouTube. They're looking for the content, okay? So it can be shaky, it can be grainy, it can not sound so great, but you know what? That's okay, because people aren't gonna listen for 3 minutes anyway. So blog articles, web pages, videos, photos, webinars, white papers, tools. It's got to be interesting, thought-provoking, useful, controversial. You can't be boring. Don't be mundane. Have an opinion. Take a side. You know, be polarizing. You see that a lot out there in the media, and there's a reason why, because it works. So you need a content creation strategy and a schedule you can stick with. You need to optimize your content. First you create content, but then you got to optimize your content for the social media. So that means a 30-minute video is useless. A 3-minute video is great, okay? So on-page SEO, that's keywords placed in the content of your, of your website, right on that page. So the keywords, so that the search engines know what you're about. That's only 25% of your rank. So 25% of your page rank comes from the things you say about yourself on your website. 75% of your rank comes from the inbound links. And what that is that's everyone in the community talking about you. So Google looks at your site and says, this is what you say you're doing. Then they go out to social media and say, here's all the people who are saying you're doing great stuff. So not only are you legitimate, but you are really a great resource. Your first page, top of the list. Does that make sense? Google, that's the only way they have to know, is to look at, are other people talking about you? It's your job to get other people talking about you. Do you need 250 million people talking about you? No, just your customers and your prospects. So in a lot of ways, everyone in this room needs to get slightly famous. Just famous enough with your customers and your prospects, okay? Social media revolution is happening now, and I've heard people that get really worried, especially like financial services or healthcare industry, HIPAA rules, confidentiality. What if someone gets on there and says a bad thing about me? Uh-oh, what am I gonna do? Well, the reality is, if they're saying, if that's happening now, it's happening now. And so if you're part of it, now you can rebuttal. Now you can handle those comments. And in fact, you can even get your promoters and your kind of fans to help you shout down. It's almost like a reasonable person standard sets up. So it's like a jury of your peers. In our culture, we've decided 12 strangers can get together, hear arguments from two sides, and we'll decide that what they decide is the truth, so much so that we'll send someone to jail on that. Same sort of things going on in social media. It's a reasonable person standard. And if someone's a kook or has an agenda, guess what? People can suss that out. So don't be afraid to get out there and start going at this. So thanks so much for listening to me, guys.